The Ontario budget has been released, and Kathleen, Wynne and the Liberal government have announced a return to deficit spending, and spend they will on everything from childcare to drug and dental plans, as well as broadband internet. To get his take on the budget, we're now joined by Keith Curry, president of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. How's it going, Keith?
Good morning, Bert. It's going well, thank you.
Hey, as president of the largest farm organization in the province, what are you seeing in this budget, from an agricultural and rural communities perspective?
Well, we certainly have been pushing very hard through our Producing Prosperity in Ontario campaign for distributed economic development, looking for that investment throughout rural Ontario. It's going to not only help agriculture, but help all rural Ontario, which will in turn help our farming businesses. So, excuse me, when you see an announcement that has, upwards of $500 million in rural broadband, I like the looks of that. That's something certainly we've been calling for as a key piece to our infrastructure investment. There is nearly $1 billion over a number of years in road infrastructure investments. Where exactly that money's going to go waits to be seen yet, but hopefully rural Ontario can grab some of that for our roads and bridges, which are a key part of our transportation system. So there are some pieces like that we're encouraged by. A little nervous that we're back into a deficit budget. Our overall budget is high, and what does that mean for everyone as a citizen going forward? It means somebody's going to pay at some point in time, but I think we're encouraged by some of the intention of the spending. Now we just need to make sure that we get some of that targeted into rural Ontario and into our farming communities.
One of the things I guess is missing from the shopping list is a commitment to natural gas, gasification of rural Ontario. I mean, they got the credit card out here. Are you surprised that wasn't on the list?
A little bit. It's something that certainly the OFA has been pushing for about 6 years now for that investment into natural gas expansion. We've been discouraged by the fact that there have actually been announcements in the past with no money really linked to it other than a small program last year. That did help, but it was a small program. So we're going to continue that effort through our Producing Prosperity campaign to make sure that those investments do come. As much as we are happy about rural broadband, it is only one piece, and the reality is investment into infrastructure in rural Ontario has to be complementary. We need all the pieces funded to really make the campaign successful.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on the Liberals' philosophy here. Typically in good economic times like we see in the province today, strong growth, low unemployment, governments, don't get the credit card out and go on a spending spree. How does the OFA view that choice that the Liberals are making here?
Well, I think we would be much happier if there was a dedicated look at investing into rural Ontario and agriculture in particular. We are happy that the OMAFRA budget does go up slightly. Exactly where that money will be targeted, we don't know yet. So there's some cautious optimism there. But as a business, as a small business, if I go to my bank 10 straight years with deficit budgets, I'm not sure how long they're going to maintain being my bank. So from that aspect, from the deficit aspect that the province is in, you have to be a little bit uneasy about that, because at the end of the day, if the interest rates double, which would only take us to about 5%, that's still an awful lot of money that's going to have to get paid back, and where's it going to come from? So I'm not opposed to spending money to get keep the economy stimulated and make things happen, but there has to be a plan. There has to be a long-range plan for this, and I'm not 100% sure I'm seeing that plan just yet.
Now, I mean, when you look at this budget, you have to figure it's an urban targeted, budget, to gain urban votes. What do farmers and people in rural Ontario, how should they view the Liberals when you look at this?
Well, I think if you look at the viewpoint of rural Ontario, and I'm only going to speak mainly for the farm community, which I represent, but they have not been big fans of this particular liberal government. So I don't think this budget is, even if it was laced with a lot of agriculture initiatives, I'm not sure that that's going to change their mind on how they feel about this government as is. Because the reality is we felt abandoned for a long time in overall investment. And you're right, the votes are in the urban areas, and so it would make sense that targeting in urban ridings in urban areas through a budget that's close to an election time, that makes sense. Having said that, we're not opposed to a government investing into urban Ontario, because it does help agriculture in some ways. Investments into infrastructure to making sure the road infrastructure in particular is in good shape, so that our goods and services get into the areas where the processing, the further value added of our products occur. That's a good thing too, because we need that side of the farm gate healthy, just like we need our side of the farm gate healthy. So it's not all bad, but it gets a little frustrating, as I mentioned earlier, that the continued look at urban Ontario investment versus rural non-investment is frustrating.
Hey, final question for you. Now, we have not talked since the Ontario PC leadership and Doug Ford's leadership victory. Have OFA been in touch with the Ford camp? And, what does a Conservative Party led by Doug Ford mean for farmers in rural Ontario?
Well, I've been having some back and forth with people in the leader's office. We're trying to set up some time where we can sit down and have a conversation with Mr. Ford. We haven't been able to do that yet, but we're working those plans out where we can sit down and have that conversation. What does it mean for the organization and for farmers in Ontario? That's an interesting question. I think at this point in time, Mr. Ford is really listening to his advisors and listening to his grassroots as to where he wants to set his policy. And I think, if you look at his caucus, it's primarily rural Ontario. So they're going to be letting him know that we've been feeling like we've been abandoned, and actually have been abandoned for quite some time. So I'm looking forward to having that chat. I know a couple of nights ago he made a mention in a London stop that his Minister of Agriculture would be a farmer. I think people are happy to hear that, but the reality is I'm looking for all ministers that are going to be good in those portfolios, regardless if they have the background or not in that area. So those are the kinds of conversations we'd like to have with Mr. Ford. I think people are optimistically looking forward to that type of change from a leader. I think there's some general discouragement with politics in general. It's not unlike what happened in the U.S. a couple of years ago when Mr. Trump was elected. I don't know that Mr. Ford is maybe quite that extreme, but I think we're looking for a change, and Mr. Ford, I think, is that kind of person that may bring that kind of change. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation with him.
Well, hey, we'll catch up to you after that conversation probably, and as I say, it promises to be an interesting election campaign ahead. Thanks for taking the time. We'll talk again.
Sure thing. I'm looking forward to it.